Welcome back to Yahoo Finance on the Move. Markets remain in positive territory. The Dow is up more than 400 points. This after the flip-flop from President Trump regarding stimulus, and with us less than 30 days now from the November 3rd election, we invite back into the stream Dr. Deborah Turner. She is president of the League of Women Voters, and it's good to have you here with so much to discuss. Before we talk about the efforts to suppress the vote, let's talk about the historic number of people who've already voted. 4 million have cast ballots early. What is that telling you?
That's telling us a couple of things. People are very excited about this election, and they understand how important it is. And it also shows that groups that have been engaged in voter education and get out the vote have really moved the American voters to understand that their vote does count and it's important and it can make a difference. So we are extremely excited about that. And that number you just mentioned, about 4 million already having cast their ballot, that's 50 times more than the same number who had cast their ballot at this time in 2016. So we're looking to possibly a very exciting voter turnout and a higher one than we've seen in many years. So this is great because that means people are listening and they're taking their vote seriously, and democracy is still alive.
And this is encouraging because there are, of course, have been a lot of warnings about the process, that it would be flawed. There have been some isolated instances, but there's also things like, for example, the recent Supreme Court ruling on South Carolina that solidified that state's requirement that if you do an absentee ballot, you have to get it witnessed, right? You have to sign an oath and someone else has to be there and also sign. How big of an obstacle is that, and other measures like that across the country when it comes to people getting in their votes?
That is a definite obstacle, and we have fought that in many states, and some situations have changed and some haven't. What happens when you require someone, particularly think about this in this time of the pandemic, to not only have to get their ballot validated and have 2 signatures. If you're living at home, or you're only living with one person, or you don't have transportation, you don't have a place where you can go to do this, it can be very prohibitive, and it can basically stop people from voting, particularly those who say can't get out on election day or can't go to an early voting site. A lot of people don't understand how mail-in ballots work, and the fact that every ballot has a designated number, and that number is used to identify, the ballot. So it's not like ballots are sent out with no way of identifying who they are. And you can actually use that unique number. It's almost like having your own Social Security number for voting, per se, and you can use that to track your ballot. So it's a very safe, very reliable, and very, very well monitored process.
I think it's easy for a lot of us to forget that the states run the elections, and then within the states, it's the counties, and Board of Elections usually are both parties represented. But I'm curious, you said in a recent interview that what interested you in leading the League of Women Voters was that the organization spoke to your values. So what values does the organization have that can help protect against voter suppression as we head into this very historic election?
Okay, as you may or may not know, our mission is very simple. It's to empower voters and protect or defend democracy. And so the values that I really have appreciated becoming part of the League of Women Voters is that we appreciate that every single person counts and has the right to be counted. We are a nonpartisan organization, so we don't support candidates, we don't support parties. What we support is making sure that democracy works in our country. And realistically, we know what democracy means is that everybody gets their vote, everybody has their voice. And I think that's the value that struck me most when I looked at the League. I realized that this was a group that looked at America as a whole and not as America as a given party or a given individual. And that's what we strive to do in everything that we do.
I want to turn to one last topic from the voting topic, and that is the vice presidential debate that is scheduled to happen this evening, not to mention the presidential debate that's supposed to happen next week. There's been a lot of talk about whether these debates actually catalyze voters, right? But I am curious, is it in the interest of democracy to have the debate still take place and to have the next one take place, even with things like safety precautions of a plexiglass barrier?
And, you know, debates have a long time been a part of our process. And there are many times when people don't have the opportunity to see their candidates or hear their candidates and hear what their policies are. And this gives folks that opportunity to do so. Will it change a lot of minds? We don't know. Okay. But the point is that any opportunity that you can give the voting people in America to see and hear their candidates is critical. And so if we can have debates where we can talk about issues and policies and people can get to understand where their candidates stand, it becomes very critical. Obviously, the safety piece is really huge, particularly this year. And, you know, we advocate very strongly that every safety measure should be in place. Obviously, I'm a physician. You know, I am very, very concerned about safety in our country around the COVID virus and any other health issue in the country, not just COVID-19. But the fact that if the measures are taken carefully and everybody agrees that they feel comfortable and safe, I think is very reasonable, and we feel it's reasonable to go on with debates. If we can't be safe, then that's another issue. Or we can do things like we're doing right now. You can do it, you know, remotely. So we have options. We're an amazing country with amazing talents and amazing abilities, so we should use them so voters can get the education they need.
And what's the saying? You should live in interesting times. Dr. Deborah Turner is the president of the League of Women Voters. Hope to have you back either on Election Day to talk about how things are going or just before or right after. All the best to you, Doctor.
Thank you very much. And just remember, plan your vote and go to important sites like vote401.org. And if you have a problem with voting any day, you can call the Election Protection Hotline at 866-OUR-VOTE. Thank you.